left are relatively consistent with where they've been for several days, but the number of passengers on them is down from where it was. Does that mean that the U.S. is now starting to move some equipment, military equipment on this, or are there planes that are going out just not full?
As we said, our mission to continue evacuating those as required and to meet the mission requirement by August 31st is what the commanders are executing.
So does that mean that you're starting to take some equipment out on these aircraft, or does it, or do you not have enough passengers?
Yeah, there is equipment leaving on those flights that was originally planned.
And then if I could ask one more, since have there been any attacks? General McKenzie talked about how the Taliban had thwarted some attacks before Thursday's attack. Have there been any other cases that you're aware of that the Taliban have actually stopped attackers from getting in towards the airport?
I don't have specific reports of that, other than, as you can see, as we just talked, the security of the base is the most important thing that we're doing to allow us to continue our mission. Yeah.
So John, you said the threat at the airport remains active and dynamic. Is it fair to say that whether or not those people killed last night deserve to be on the face of the earth or not, that the threat at the airport remains unchanged?
I wouldn't say that it remains unchanged. I didn't say that. I said it remains active and dynamic, and it does.
Is it as serious as it was yesterday?
It is a serious threat. I'm not sure how any potential terrorist threat can be anything other than serious, or that we shouldn't take it seriously. It's serious.
Yesterday, you denied the Taliban claim that they had assumed responsibility for security in some parts of the airport. Is that still the case, that the Taliban do not provide security at the airport itself?
That is still the case.
And is that going to remain the case until the end, or at some point do they have to move into the airport to keep the crowds at bay while those last planes take off?
I'm not going to talk about the specifics as we get closer to the end. Let me just say this, as clearly as I can, we will maintain the ability to defend ourselves and our operations all the way through. Yeah, Lucas.
John, did the Taliban in any way provide any intelligence or any support with this drone strike that killed those two ISIS terrorists?
I'm not going to talk about intelligence matters one way or the other.
Rule it out.
I'm not going to talk about intelligence matters one way or the other.
Taliban supporting this drone strike in any way?
We had useful intelligence on our own to conduct this strike.
Do you consider the Taliban and the Haqqani network separate entities?
Lucas, I'm not going to give you a breakdown here, a characterization of the Taliban or the Haqqani. Now, Lucas, you got to remember what we're focused on here, and that's on getting more people out and getting our troops out in this mission. And I'm not sure what benefit it does for me to try to characterize one group or another. We know that the
deputy leader of the Taliban is Surjan Haqqani, who has a $10 million bounty on his head. People should know, are these separate entities, or?
We know that there is a certain matter of commingling here. I mean, there's a marbling, if you will, of Taliban and Haqqani. What I'm pushing back a little bit on you, Lucas, is the relevance of that discussion to what we're trying to do today, which is complete an evacuation safely and to get our troops and our forces at the airport out safely. That's what we're focused on.
One more question. Every major newspaper and television news outlet has said that the U.S. military brass recommended to the president to leave 2,500 troops in Afghanistan, not pull out. Have you asked any of those outlets for a correction?
I'm sorry, say that one again.
Every major newspaper and television news outlet has reported that top Pentagon brass, from the defense secretary to the head of U.S. forces in the Middle East and Afghanistan, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, recommended to the president that 2,500 U.S. troops should have stayed in Afghanistan, not been pulled out. Have you asked any news outlet for a correction to those stories?
Thanks for repeating it. We don't make it a habit to talk publicly one way or the other. Right, wrong, up, down, more or less, about the advice and counsel that Pentagon leaders give the commander-in-chief.
What about correcting the record?
Louis.
Has there been another helicopter evacuation recently?
I don't think there has been. No.
Okay. Can I follow up on the discussion about the drone strike yesterday? It's been characterized as being retaliation, as being reprisal, for the bombing at the airport. Is that accurate, or was this something that, as part of your over-the-horizon counterterrorism planning, you were already targeting?
This was a little bit of both. I mean, we have the ability to conduct over-the-horizon counterterrorism capabilities. We've talked about that. This certainly fits in that mold. But it's not coincidence that it happened just a couple of days after we lost 13 brave service members.
And can I ask again, you're calling one a planner and another a facilitator. I believe that you're saying that one, that's correct, right? That's the characterization of these two individuals. What is the difference? I mean, and what makes them targeted?
Obviously, thanks for your question, but that is the clarification, planner, facilitator, that are those that would have the ability to facilitate or help plan in attacks. And that, as we said, that gave us the ability and the authority we had to conduct those missions.
And were they involved in planning an imminent attack?
We're not going to go into detailed intelligence information that led to that attack or that strike or future operations.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mark, couple of things on the strike. First thing, you call them high profile. Could you explain to us, but not senior? So, and then I have a follow up on the strike. What makes you say they're high profile?
Based on the intelligence collected and activities in the past, that was the classification used for those.
General Taylor, can you just clarify? Were you actually targeting both of these individuals, or were you targeting one and the other one happened to be there and got struck?
We had the intelligence that led us to the target area that allowed for that strike to happen with the BDA as briefed.
Were you targeting two individuals in this strike?
We had intelligence that allowed us to conduct that strike on those multiple individuals.
And, John, if I could ask you also, so now you have done this strike, what is the assessment or feeling about the impact of this strike on ISIS-K in Afghanistan? Have you degraded them in any fashion? Can you explain that if they're high profile? Have you deterred? Have you degraded? What is your conclusion about what the impact of this strike actually has been?
They have two high-profile planners, or one planner, one facilitator, that are no longer on their muster roll. So they have lost some capability to plan and to conduct missions. But Barbara, make no mistake, nobody's writing this off and saying, well, we got them, so we don't have to worry about ISIS-K anymore. Not the case. As I said earlier, the threat stream is still active, still dynamic. We're still laser focused on that and force protection. And we aren't thinking for a minute that what happened yesterday gets us in the clear. Not a minute. But do we believe that we hit valid targets? Bad guys who can do bad things and can plan bad missions? Absolutely. And do we think that will have some impact on their ability going forward? Absolutely. What and to how much, we're just gonna have to keep watching the intelligence going forward.
I don't know if you can answer, but does the United States have a sense, even if you can't say names, do you have any sense of who is in command of ISIS-K right now?
I'm not going to get into specific org charts and intelligence about what we know about the organization. Obviously, we put a lot of time and effort into learning as much as we can, and I think for security purposes, I'm just going to leave it at that. Well,
So a couple quick questions about the attack itself. First of all, where did the unmanned aircraft come from? Was it a Reaper drone, Predator drone? Can you give us any information on that?
over the horizon.
Okay, so no specific information you can give
Change
us?
them over the horizon.
And then were there reports that the targets were in a vehicle? Is that accurate? And, or was there any other damage to ISIS infrastructure?
As I think the general said right at the top, we're going to be loath to release a lot of tactical level BDA detail here. We want to preserve as much flexibility as we can. So I think you can understand, or at least I hope you can understand, that we're just not going to be able to answer a lot of the detailed stuff right now.
And then just to follow up, what are you doing about the ISIS-K cells in Kabul itself? Because clearly these attacks are coming from Kabul. It's possible the terrorists have gone underground. Obviously, you can't target the city itself with airstrikes right now.
Yeah, what I would tell you is we're watching the threat stream very carefully, Laura. Clearly, they have the ability to operate inside Kabul. We're mindful of that. And we're watching it as closely as we can. And we're obviously trying to make sure that we have available to us as much information and context as possible so as to prepare for any future attacks. And that certainly, we have to assume, could come from or be planned out of or sourced out of places that they might have established themselves in Kabul. I think that's really as far as we're going to be able to go right now. Okay.
And if I could ask the general a couple of questions about the airport. When are we officially handing the airport over to the Taliban? Is the Taliban going to be running the airport? Are they going to be running it with the Qataris and the Turks, as I believe has been reported?
We're going to continue to run the airport up until the end, and those details, as they continue to be worked out, will come forward. But right now, we will continue to run that airfield to make sure that we can execute our operations.
And are some of the gates to the airport welded shut, as has been reported?
There are gates that are closed, absolutely, right now. But as we said earlier, we do have gates that are continue to be open as we coordinate and still work with the Department of State to get people in for evacuation.
We'll have to go to the phones here.
Yes, sir.
Howard Altman.
Hey, first of all, I want to express my condolences to the families of the lost loved ones in Kabul. Despite this massive effort to evacuate folks, there were a number of organizations, including current and former military, that feel there's a level of frustration in not being able to get people out, and they're working in many ways. There's been many reports about that. My question is DOD cooperating with any of these organizations? Can you talk about that? And then what is your message to these organizations? Are they helping? Are they hindering? And given what you know about how this is unfolding, should they continue their operations?
Well, it's certainly not for us to tell them to stop caring about individuals that they know that are in Afghanistan, Howard. We are, as you might imagine, we are working off many different streams of information about various vulnerable Afghan groups, not to mention applicants in the special immigrant visa, of course, American citizens.